Okay, okay. So the device is set up. 1 second. We are already at 186 people. I'm assuming 80 to 100 people will be joining us in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Okay. Morning, morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. So many good mornings. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's great to see you guys. Okay, after how many days? After 3 days, I think. Right. So all of you, I think, wrote your MT this past Sunday, right? And I went through your MT scores, all of you. Okay. So they were mildly disappointing, I would say. Okay, that I think one person crossed 600, and then there was one more person at 571, if I'm not wrong. Okay, and then apart from those two people, nobody crossed 500, which was really disappointing. So yeah, I was just going through your MT scores, and the performance was not up to the mark here. I don't know what went wrong there. So let's see. You guys will have an MT6 soon, maybe next Sunday, I think. So the portion for MT6 will be the same as portion for MT5, but the only difference is that in MT6 all the chapters will have equal weightage. Okay, so in MT5 the last 5 chapters of biology had a lot of weightage. That is 3 chapters from human physiology and 2 chapters from plant physiology, right? So those 5 chapters counted for 50% of the biology portion, right? But in MT6, all the chapters will have equal weightage, or I should say proportional weightage, right? Like you won't expect the same number of questions from living world that you expect from digestion and absorption, but proportional weightage will be there. Okay. So make sure that you do better in that one. Learn from your mistakes. That is the most important thing. Okay. It's okay to commit mistakes. Okay, that is, everybody commits mistake. That is human nature to commit mistake. But the important thing is to learn from your mistakes. Okay, so see where you went wrong. Okay, if you want, I can conduct a separate doubt solving session before MT6 if you really want it. Okay, if you guys need worksheets, please let me know. I have a lot of questions with me. I have a lot of worksheets with me. So if you need that, please let me know. And if you need any other help, please do not hesitate to ask for help. Okay, I'm more than willing to help you guys, but the effort should come from you guys. Okay, okay, the effort should come from you guys because the current performance was a bit disappointing. I was expecting more people to cross 500, but only 2 people did. Okay, those 2 people did well, I would say. Okay, they can still do slightly better, but yeah, apart from those 2 people, I would say everybody was a bit disappointing. Okay, so make sure that you take care of it in the next one. Okay, in MT6, I want all of you to do better than what you did in MT5. It's very important. Okay, you guys have now less than a year. Okay, because by this time next year you would be done with your NEET. Okay, so unless you want to take a drop, which I recommend always against, and you should not aim for. Okay, you should start getting serious if you're not already serious. Okay, because we don't have a lot of time now. Prajwal, I have, okay, so notes for the first 2 lectures of sexual reproduction in flowering plants have been uploaded. Shashwat, the highest score was 600. It was of Aditi. Okay, then I think Hari Prakash, if I remember the name correctly, he was second. His score was 571. But I think Hari Prakash was the one who scored the highest in biology. His score was 306, while Aditi scored 301, if I remember correctly. Right? Okay, so those 2 people did well, but other people can do better. Okay, so please get to work. Okay, okay, that's enough preaching for the day. If you have any doubts about MT, anything, please stay back after the class. I'll be more than happy to help you guys with it. Chalo. So today is your 3rd lecture of sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Okay. So today, what all do I plan to cover? So in the last class we stopped at formation of female gamete cells. Formation of female gamete cells. Okay. Formation of female gamete cells. Yes, Prajwal, tomorrow I also have class, right? So this week, so from this week onwards, I'll have 4 classes every week. Okay. Because I want to finish the portion in time. So you guys will have 4 classes every week. Okay, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So once we are done with your MT6 also, okay, once you guys are done with your MT6 also, then I'll conduct a problem solving session for the first 2 chapters of 12th standard. Okay, the reason why I'm not conducting the The reason why I'm not conducting the doubt solving session for the first two chapters right now, or the problem solving session, is I want you guys to right now focus on your MT. Once you guys are done with that, then I would conduct problem solving session and doubt solving session for the first two chapters. Okay, that is reproduction in organisms and sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Okay, till then I want you guys to focus on your MT, focus on your 11th standard portion, make sure you're thorough with it, so that your performance in MT6 is better than what it was. ठीक है. Shreya, just stay back after the class, okay? Because I think I mentioned that in last class also. So just stay back after the class if you want further clarification on that. Okay. So today, what I'll do, I plan to cover. So in last class, we talked about formation. We talked about pollen grains, right? And then we talked about we ended the class at formation of female gamete cells, right? Today we'll start the class with how does embryo sac, how does formation of an embryo sac take place from the female gamete. And then since we have already talked about your male gametes, we will have already talked about your female gametes, then we will start with transferring your male gametes to the female gametes, which is known as pollination. We will see what exactly is pollination, what are the different types of pollination, right? So we will be doing self-pollination and cross-pollination. So there are different types of self-pollination also. We'll be covering that. There are different types of cross-pollination. We'll cover some of the cross-pollination if the class goes at the pace that I want it to go. But if we end up going slightly slower, I am fine with that. Again, at any point, if you fail to understand anything, please let me know. I am more than willing to help you guys. Okay, check it. So before we move forward, let's just do a brief recap of what we have studied so far. So we started the chapter with your male gametes. Okay, we talked about microsporogenesis and microsporangia, the fact that microsporangia has 4 walls. Then we talked about microsporogenesis, how microspores or male gametes are formed from pollen mother cell, or microspore mother cell or microsporocytes. After that, we talked about how a microspore turns into a pollen grain. There is formation of a vegetative cell, that is tube cell, and a generative cell, right? In some cases, the pollen grain is shed at a 2-cell stage. In some cases, the pollen grain is shed at a 3-cell stage. Okay. Then we also talked about megasporogenesis in last class. We also talked about megasporogenesis in last class, right? Where we saw what is the structure of a female gamete, what is the structure of a female gametophyte, and in that we talked about how does female gamete formation take place from megaspore mother cell. We saw that it gives rise to a tetrad of megaspores, of which the 3 regenerate. Now those are the micropolar end, and the one at the chalazal end retains. Okay, so that is what we have studied so far. As always, I have a couple of questions for you guys just to see where you guys are at. Okay, whether you guys are studying what I'm teaching, whether you guys are understanding what I'm teaching or not, and then we will start with today's class. So the first question is on your screen. The first question is on your screen. The most common type of ovule is what? So if you remember correctly, in last class, we also talked about different types of ovules, right? There was orthopus, okay. There was orthotropous, there was anatropous, then there was hemitropous, there was campylotropous, and so on, right? So we talked about different types of shapes of ovule, right? So the question is, which shape is the most common? Which shape is the most common? So just to refresh, okay, if you guys do not remember, orthotropous was completely erect. That is the stalk, which is the funicle, and your ovule, they lie in the same plane, right? Then hemitropous it was perpendicular to the funicle. Okay, then your anatropous it was opposite. It was in the opposite direction to the funicle, and campylotropous your ovule was curved, but your embryo sac was not, right? Okay, so those are the 4 options that you guys have on your screen: orthotropous, hemitropous, anatropous, and campylotropous. Which one of the type is most common? Which one of the type is most common? Okay, yes, Pritish, I am aware. Okay, I am aware of that. I just want to see if you guys can make an educated guess or not. Okay, so the options are now live on your screen. Make sure that you punch in your votes as quickly as possible. Okay, the poll is live on your screen. Get your votes in, people. Get your votes in. Okay, so far 41% of you have voted. It would be very nice if more people could get their votes in. I want everybody to vote. So make sure that you vote. If you cannot see the vote, click on the three dots at the bottom of your phone screen. Okay, notes for the previous two classes were uploaded last night in the drive. Make sure that you download them from there and study from them. Okay, the reason why I'm giving such detailed notes is it will help those people also who want to focus on boards, plus it will help those people also who want to go for NEET. Okay, so you can refer those notes for both the purposes. Anyway, 10 seconds and I'll close the poll. Yeah, 10 seconds, then I will close the poll. Please get your votes in. 62% of the people have voted. Okay, I want the other 38% of the, I want the other 40, I want the other 38% of the people to also vote. Okay, so make sure that you guys get your votes in. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and I'll stop. Okay, so 70% of the people voted, and according to you guys, 41% think A is correct, then 39% think that C is correct. People are confused between A and C. Okay, the correct option here, one second, guys. The correct option here is option C. Anatropous is the most common type of ovule. That is, the ovule is in the opposite direction to the funicle. Okay, your funicle will be like this, and your ovule will be in the opposite direction. So this is the most common type of ovule that is seen in the plant. That is your Anatropous. Always remember that. Okay, I did not mention this in last class. I just wanted to see how many of you tried studying on your own. So the correct answer is C. The correct answer is C. That is Anatropous. Okay, so if the question is asked, what is the most common type? The answer will be Anatropous. That is, the funicle is opposite to the direction of the ovule. Okay. Yes, Tausif. Pritish, tension मत लो यार, इतना tension मत लिया करो. Okay, ठीक है. कौन सा MT है? Okay, so now the next question is on your screen. The next question is on your screen. It is an assertion and reasoning based question. Okay, exine of a pollen grain is made up of sporopollenin, which are resistant to high temperature, strong acid or alkali, as well as enzymatic degradation. Sporopollenin are absent in the region of germ pole. So an assertion is given to you, a reason is given to you. ठीक है प्रणव, एक बार बता दिया, that is more than enough for me. Thank you very much. 3 साल हो गए प्रणव. How long will you trouble me for? Okay, so the 4 options are your screen. The 4 options are your usual suspects. A, that is both assertion and reasoning is correct, but the reason is the correct explanation of the assertion. B, assertion and reason are correct, but reason does not explain the assertion. C, assertion is true, reason is false. D, both assertion and reason are false. Those are the options that are there on your screen. I hope all of you have read the question carefully. I'll read the question once more, just in case you might not have read it. So, exine of a pollen grain is made up of sporopollenin, which are resistant to high temperature, strong acid or alkali, as well as enzymatic degradation. Sporopollenin are absent in the region of germ layer. Okay? Okay. So the options are now on your screen. Please get your votes in, guys. Get your votes in. Okay, so we are up to 262 people. That's good to see. Okay. In one of the classes, we touched nearly 300. Okay. I don't know where the rest of the 35 people are, but it's okay. I am happy with 262. Okay. Get your votes in, people. 45% have voted. Meghna, if you were present in the last class, I mentioned Anatropous, that is opposite to the direction of the funicle. Okay, Orthotropous, same direction. Okay, and then you have Campylotropous, where your ovule is curved, but the embryo sac is not. Right, so I mentioned all that in previous class. Just go through the notes of the previous class. They're there in the drive. Okay, 10 seconds and I'll close the poll beta. 63% of you have voted. It will be very nice if more people can get their votes in. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and I'll stop then. Okay. Okay. So in this case also 70% of the people voted. I got 186 votes out of 266 people who are present. And 65% of you went with B. That is, both assertion and reason are true, but the reason does not explain the assertion. And the 62% of you who went with B are absolutely correct. The correct option is option B. There you go. Again, whenever you have assertion and reasoning based question, first see whether the two statements are true or not. Look at the assertion. Hexine is made up of sporopollenin. We know that it is true. And it is resistant to high temperature, strong acid or alkali, as well as enzymatic degradation. So the entire statement is true. That means D cannot be possible. Some of you have still selected D. I mentioned this, that hexine is made up of sporopollenin and it is highly resistant. Then sporopollenin are absent in the region of germ pores. I mentioned that also. Germ pores are the place where the pollen tube comes out, and those are the places where only intine is present and hexine is absent. So that means reason is also true. That means this option has also been eliminated. That means you are left with only option A and B. So whenever you are stuck between option A and B, convert the assertion into a question. Convert the assertion into a question and then see if the reason is the answer or not. Why is hexine made up of sporopollenin, right? Why is it resistant to degradation? And then see, is the reason the answer to that, right? And reason is not the answer here. So the correct option is option B. I hope this is now clear to everyone. Okay? Okay. So just a couple of revision questions that I wanted to get out of the way. Now, okay. So Pushpa, yes, that is what I mentioned. That is what I mentioned, right? It is not, it is resistant to high temperature, strong acid or alkali, as well as enzymatic degradation. It is resistant to that, right? So what is the reason? Okay, so Chetna is asking, what is the reason why hexine is so? So the reason for that is so that the male gamete is protected. So that the male gamete is protected, right? Because the male gamete has to be transferred from the male gametophyte to the female gametophyte, right? And it has, sometimes it has to undergo harsh conditions. So the function of hexine, okay, is to protect the pollen grain under adverse condition and ensure that it remains viable even if it has to undergo harsh condition. Yes, that is what I mentioned, right? It is resistant to high temperature. What does that mean? Resistant mean ka matlab kya hota hai? Resistant means what? Resistant means it is not affected. Okay, ठीक है, चलो. So now let's start with the class. Okay, so in the last class, that is Friday's class, Abhishek, I just mentioned what is the reason for being such hard, to make sure that the gametes, that the male gametes are not degraded by the environmental factors. Okay, ठीक है. So in the last class we ended, okay, in the last class we ended the class at formation of female gametes, that is megasporogenesis. We saw that a megaspore mother cell, that is MMC, gives rise to 4 megaspores, which is known as tetrad of megaspore. And now that megaspore have to be converted into an embryo sac, right? That megaspore has to be converted into an embryo sac, because if you remember your 10th standard class, we studied in your 10th standard class that the male gamete fuses with the egg. Right now we do not have the egg, we have a megaspore. So how does that megaspore give rise to an entire embryo which contains the egg? That is what our first topic of the day is. Okay, so what is your first topic of the day? The first topic of the day is megagametogenesis. Megagametogenesis. So what is megagametogenesis? Okay, megagametogenesis is the process of development of embryo sac from megaspore. That is known as megagametogenesis. So if you remember in last class, this is the figure from the last class, that megaspore mother cell gives rise to a megaspore tetrad. And we studied in last class, okay, and we studied in last class that only the functional megaspore develops into the female gametophyte. We studied that the 3 female gametophyte, the 3 female megaspores that are at the micropylar end, they degrade, right? These 3 end up degrading and only one remains. Okay, the one at the chalazal end remains, and the functional megaspore turns into an embryo sac, and the functional megaspore turns into an embryo sac. Aishwarya, just stay back after the class. I'll help you with it. Shreya, I mentioned that in previous 2 classes. Just stay back after the class. I'll help you with it. Okay, I want to move the class forward. Just stay back after the class. I'll help you with it. Okay. Anyway, so if you remember last class, we studied that megaspore mother cells gives rise to a megaspore tetrad, and the 3 that are present at the micropylar end, they degrade, and the one at the chalazal end, remains functional, and the functional one develops into a female gametophyte or the embryo sac. And this process of transformation of embryo sac from megaspore is known as megagametogenesis. So megasporogenesis is formation of megaspore. Megagametogenesis is formation of your embryo sac. So a lot of you are asking, why do these degenerate? Okay, so to be honest, I do not have a concrete answer for that. Why do these 3 degenerate? Okay, I tried reading up upon it. I couldn't find a very conclusive answer. Why do the 3 degenerate? It is observed that the 3 degenerate. Okay, and if I have to give a reason, I would say that so that every flower has only 1 egg, because if all of the four turn into an embryo sac, then 1 flower will give rise to 4 fruits, right? So the reason why the other 3 degenerate is that every flower contains only 1 egg, so that every flower gives rise to only 1 fruit instead of multiple fruits. That is the reason that I could come up with why the other 3 degenerate. Okay? So make sure that you know the difference between megasporogenesis and megagametogenesis. Okay? Okay. And this method of embryo sac formation from a single megaspore is termed as megaspore development. Okay, so since only 1 megaspore is giving rise to an embryo sac, this is known as monosporic. Development. Pranav, the plant doesn't decide which one to degenerate. The 3 at the micropylar end degenerate. Okay, okay. So that is the introduction to megagametogenesis. That is formation of your embryo sac. Now, how does the formation of the embryo sac take place? How exactly does megagametogenesis takes place? Let's see. Okay. So now what happens is the nucleus of the functional megaspore divides mitotically to form 2 nuclei which move to the opposite poles, forming 2 nucleated embryo sac. So as you can see in the first step, that the nucleus of the megaspore, so megaspore is uninucleate, like all the cells, it contains only 1 nucleus. So the nucleus of the megaspore divides mitotically to form 2 nuclei which move to the opposite poles, forming 2 nucleate embryo sac. As you can see, nuclear division has taken place, that is karyokinesis has taken place, but cell division has not taken place. And that is a very key aspect of megagametogenesis. In megagametogenesis, karyokinesis keeps on happening, but cytokinesis does not take place till the end. So what is the first step? The cell of the functional megaspore. So this is your functional megaspore, which contains 1 nucleus. So the nucleus of the functional megaspore divides and gives rise to 2 nucleus, and the 2 nucleus move to the opposite ends, and the nucleus divide mitotically. Very important that the nucleus divide mitotically. Okay, that the nucleus divide mitotically. Okay, that is your first step, forming a 2 nucleate embryo sac. Now, after that, what happens? Tasif, wait for me. After that, what happens? 2 more mitotic nuclear division happen, which result in formation of 4 nucleate and later 8 nucleate stages of the embryo sac. So what happens is, initially 1 nucleus gives rise to 2 nucleus, and the two nucleus move to the opposite end, and the two nucleus move to the opposite end. Then these two nucleus undergo mitosis and they give rise to a 4-nucleate stage, and they give rise to a 4-nucleate stage. After that, these 4 nucleus undergo mitosis again. After that, what happens is these 4 nucleus undergo mitosis again and give rise to an 8-nucleate stage, and give rise to a 8-nucleate stage. Okay, Pranav, you cannot end up with an odd number beta. In mitosis, each parent cell gives rise to 2 daughter cells. So what happens? What happens in megagametogenesis is, Anushri, I'll explain again, do not worry. What happens in megagametogenesis is that first the nucleus of the megaspore divides mitotically to give rise to 2 nucleus. Cell division has not taken place, only nuclear division has taken place. After that, these 2 nuclei undergo mitosis again, and we end up with 4 nuclei. Still, no cell division has taken place. So now you end up with your 4-nucleate embryo sac. Then these 4 nucleus undergo mitosis again, and we end up with 8-nucleate stage, and we end up with 8-nucleate stage of the embryo sac. Okay, and these mitotic divisions are strictly free nuclear. What does that mean? Nuclear divisions are not followed immediately by cell wall formation. As you can see in all these 3 stages, that the nucleus division is taking place, but the cell wall formation is not taking place. So these type of mitotic divisions are known as free nuclear divisions. यहाँ तक सबको समझा के बेटा? Give me a yes or no. Is this clear to everybody? So far, is this clear to everybody? ठीक है? Okay. Is this clear to everybody? ठीक है? Okay. Thank you. So now I'll move forward. Okay. Now, once it reaches an 8-nucleate stage, then cell wall formation takes place. Once, okay, Ankita, you want me to explain the last one again? Kishore, you want me to explain the entire thing again? Beta, kuch nahi. Mitosis yaad hai? 1 cell gives rise to 2 cell. 2 cell gives rise to 4 cell. 4 cell gives rise to 8 cell. Same cheez ho raha hai. The only difference is that your nuclear division is taking place, but the cell division is not immediately. If you remember mitosis carefully, as soon as telophase ends, cytokinesis also takes place. Here, cytokinesis is not taking place despite the division of the nucleus. That is what the last statement means. That is cytoplasm does not take, cytokinesis does not take place. Cytokinesis does not take place until it reaches the 8-nucleate stage. Okay, until it reaches the 8-nucleate stage. And Chetan is asking, why does the cytokinesis not take place? So the cytokinesis does not take place because the embryo sac has a particular structure. And in order for the particular achieve that particular structure, the nucleus should be able to move freely in the cytoplasm. That is why the cytokinesis does not immediately take place after. That is why cytokinesis does not immediately take place after your nuclear division. Okay. So 1 nucleus gives rise to 2 nucleus. Then those 2 nucleus undergo division again to give rise to 4 nucleus. Then those 4 nucleus undergo division again to give rise to 8 nucleus. And all these divisions are free nuclear. That is, no cell wall formation or cytokinesis is taking place. Okay, chalo, let's move forward then. Now, what happens after 8-nucleate stage? So after 8-nucleate stage, cell walls are laid down, leading to the organization of the typical female gamete or embryo sac. So as you can see, Okay, so Vijay Lakshmi, the megaspore has a cell wall around it, beta. The megaspore has a cell wall around it. The megaspore has a cell wall around it. Okay, so it's not like those nucleus are just free floating in the entire ovule. Okay, the megaspore has a cell wall around it, but within the megaspore, cell wall is not forming immediately after each nuclear formation. Okay, so after the 8 nucleate stage, then your cell walls are laid down. Then your cell walls are laid down. Okay, 6 of the 8 nuclei are surrounded by cell walls and organized into cell. This is very important. Okay, that not all the 8 nuclei are surrounded by cell wall. Only 6 of the 8 nuclei are surrounded by cell wall. What do they look like? I'll show in the next figure. Okay, what do they look like? I'll show in the next figure. So once they reach the 8 nucleate phase, then cell walls are laid down. Then cell walls are laid down. Okay. Yes, Vidya. Yes, megaspore gives rise to embryosac. Okay. So once 8 nucleus stage has been reached, then cell walls are laid down, and 6 of the 8 nuclei, 6 of the 8 nuclei get cells wall around them. Get cell walls around them. The remaining 2 nuclei, called polar nuclei, are situated below the egg apparatus in the large central cell. So the 2 nuclei in the center, that is known as your polar nuclei, they do not get a cell wall. They do not get a cell wall. Okay, and they just float in the bigger embryo sac itself. Okay, so 6 of the 8 nuclei get cell walls around them, but the middle 2 nuclei, which are known as polar nuclei, do not get cell wall around. Do not get cell wall around them. I hope that this slide is clear to everybody so that I can move forward. Okay, is this slide clear to everybody? Basically, kuch nahi keh raha hai. What is it saying? What is it saying? It's saying that once 8 nucleate phase has been reached, only then cell walls are laid. And 6 of the 8 nuclei are lucky enough to get a cell wall. 6 of the 8 nuclei are lucky enough to get the cell wall. The middle 2, those are known as polar nuclei, do not get a cell wall. Now, the reason for that, to be honest, I do not know. I look upon it and I'll let you know why do the middle 2 polar nuclei do not get a cell wall. Okay, so a couple of you have asked this question. I'll look into it and I'll let you know. To be honest, right now I do not know the concrete reason, and I do not want to give you a random reason. Okay, so I'll look into it and I'll let you know. Okay, so the 2 middle nuclei do not get the cell wall, so those are known as polar nuclei, and they remain floating. They remain floating in the embryo sac itself. Ritish, abhi bola na. I'll look into it and let you know why do the middle 2 do not get. Okay. Okay. So what exactly does it look like once the cell wall has been laid down? So this is what happens. Okay. This is the entire process of embryo sac formation. Okay. This is the entire process of embryo sac formation from your megaspore mother cell. So your megaspore mother cell is diploid. It undergoes megasporogenesis and gives rise to 4 haploid cells. The 3 at the micropolar end degrades, and the chalazal one is your megaspore or your embryo sac, which undergoes mitosis, first 2 stage, then 4 stage, then you end up with A stage, and then cell walls are laid down. And as you can see, the middle 2, which do not get any cell wall, those are known as polar nuclei. Those are known as polar nuclei, and this is your mature embryo sac. And this is your mature embryo sac. So this is the entire process of formation of embryo sac from your megaspore mother cell. So this process is your megasporogenesis. Then the 3 at the micropolar end degrade. The 1 at the chalazal end, matures into an embryo sac. Okay, then it undergoes 2 consecutive rounds of free nuclear division. You end up at an 8 nucleate stage, and then cell walls are laid down. Okay, I hope this is clear to everybody. Yes or no? Is this clear to everybody, beta? So this is your entire process of formation of megaspore of your embryo sac from the megaspore mother cell, which was diploid in nature. Okay, सबको समझा? Let's move forward then. Okay. This is what your embryo sac looks like after it completely matures. This is what the embryo sac looks like after it completely matures. Okay. There are two polar nuclei in the middle which do not have a cell wall around it. While these three cells and these three cells have cell wall around them. Okay. So 6 nuclei have cell wall around them. The 2 nuclei in the middle, known as polar nuclei, do not have cell wall around. Okay, let's see. So the 3 cells are grouped together at the micropylar end and constitute the egg apparatus. So this is your micropylar end, and at the micropylar end, there are 3 cells. There are 3 cells, and these 3 cells together are known as egg apparatus. These 3 cells together are known as egg apparatus. What is the egg apparatus made up of? Egg apparatus is made up of 2 synergids and 1 egg cell. So the egg apparatus is made up of 2 synergids and 1 egg cell. 2 synergids and 1 egg cell. Synergids are also known as helper cells. Why are they known as helper cells? Because synergids have special cellular thickenings at the micropylar tip called filiform apparatus. So they contain these cellular thickenings which are known as filiform apparatus. And what is the function of filiform apparatus? The function of filiform apparatus is guiding the pollen tube into the synergid. So its function is to guide the pollen tube into the synergid so that the male gamete can enter the embryo sac. Okay, so the 3 cells at the micropylar end are known as egg apparatus. Anushri, I'm explaining again. Okay, so the 3 cells at the micropylar end are known as egg apparatus. What is the egg apparatus made up of? The egg apparatus is made up of egg as well as your synergids. So egg and synergids together give you egg apparatus. Egg and synergid together give you egg apparatus. Okay? They together give you. Beta, synergid is name of this cell. Synergid is name of this cell. Okay, synergid is not a word. Synergid is made of the name of the cell. So these two cells are synergid cells. Okay, so the egg apparatus is present at the micropylar end and it contains egg and synergids. 2 synergid, 1 egg. Synergid is also known as helper cell because they contain filiform apparatus. The function of the filiform apparatus is to guide the pollen tube into the embryo sac so that it can enter the embryo sac. Okay, Shashwat, I'll explain the entire thing once again. आराम से सुनना, ठीक है? देखो, इस slide में we are just focusing on this portion. बाकी सब भूल जाओ. We are just focusing on the bottom portion. What does the bottom portion see? What can you see in the bottom portion? In bottom portion, you can see 3 cells. 3 cells दिख रहे हैं bottom portion में. Those 3 cells are known as egg apparatus. And in those 3 cells, 2 are synergids, which are also known as helper cells. 1 is egg. Okay? Then synergids contain filiform apparatus. See this portion, which has been marked as filiform apparatus. Okay? So the synergids contain filiform apparatus, which play an important role in guiding the pollen tube into the embryo sac. I hope सबको clear हुआ. I hope that this slide is clear to everybody. ठीक है? Let's move forward then. Now, the 3 cells at the chalazal end are called antipodal cells. Okay? So this is your chalazal end. So these are your antipodal cells. Okay? These are your antipodal cells. Okay? Pritish, so there are 3 ways with which microspores can enter. I'll be talking about that when I'll talk about fertilization. Sukanya, what part you did not understand, beta? Okay, I'll explain again. I'll explain the entire thing again. Easy slide. Okay, so this is your micropylar end. Okay, so in this case, if you look at it, your micropylar end was here. because the embryo sac was inverted. So confused मत हो जाना कि सर यहाँ पे तो egg apparatus नीचे था, and in this figure, one second, and in this figure the egg apparatus is at the top. Okay, do not get confused कि सर यहाँ पे तो egg apparatus top पे आ गया, in the previous one the egg apparatus was at the bottom. I have flipped the ovule a bit. Okay, so okay, it's not that the micropylar end is always the bottom. Okay, a micropylar end can be at the top also. Micropylar end means that end where you see a micropyle. Okay, so in the previous one the embryo sac was inverted. That is why the egg apparatus was at the bottom. Here the micropyle is the top, so that is why the egg apparatus is at the top. That is why the egg apparatus is at the top. Sanjana, yes, I can see your message. Okay. So Abhishek, chalazal end is the opposite to micropylar end. I mentioned that in previous class also, that chalazal end is opposite to micropyle. So what is micropyle? This small opening is known as micropyle. Okay. This small opening is known as micropyle. So whatever is opposite to it, that becomes a chalazal end. So this end is chalazal end. Okay. Anyway, so okay, so do not remember it in this way that the cells at the bottom are always egg apparatus and the cells at the top are always antipodal cell. Okay, the cell toward the micropyle are egg apparatus. So if micropyle is up, so egg apparatus be upper. If the micropyle is at the bottom, then the egg is also at the bottom. Okay, so remember that. Okay, remember that the egg apparatus is not always at the bottom. Egg apparatus is wherever you will see micropyle. Okay. Egg apparatus is wherever you will see micropyle. Okay, so if the micropyle is at the top, your egg apparatus will be at the top. If the micropyle is at the bottom, your egg apparatus will be at the bottom. Okay, anyway, the three cells at the chalazal end are known as antipodal cells. So since this is your chalazal end, these three cells are known as antipodal cells. These three cells are known as antipodal cells. All these cells, different types of cells serve different function. What is their function? We will be starting when we are talking about your fertilization and post-fertilization event. अभी के लिए बस इतना याद रखो, cells at the micropylar end are egg apparatus, cells at the chalazal end are known as antipodal cells. The large central cell has two polar nuclei. So these are your two polar nuclei. These are your two polar nuclei. Okay, and this is what your mature embryo sac looks like. So a typical angiosperm embryo sac at maturity contains 8 nucleus but 7 cells. Contains 8 nucleus but 7 cells. All of you can count the 8 nucleus. Those black dots, if you look at it, there are 8 black dots, but there are 7 cells. What are the 7 cells? Your 7 cells are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this bigger one, that is your 7. So a mature embryo sac contains 8 nucleus but 7 cells. 3 at the top, 3 at the bottom, and the one big cell circling all 6 of them. So there are 7 cells but 8 nucleus. There are 7 cells but 8 nucleus. There are 7 cells but 8 nucleus. Is this slide clear to everybody? Beta, just give me a yes or no. Is this slide clear to everybody? Give me a yes or no. Okay, what is it saying? So I'll just summarize. In an embryo sac, the 3 cells at the micropylar end are egg apparatus. Okay, Prajwal, I'll repeat again. In an embryo sac, the 3 cells at the micropylar end are egg apparatus. Egg apparatus contain your synergids and egg. Synergids contain filiform apparatus. Synergids contain filiform apparatus. Okay, 3 cells at the chalazal end. 3 cells at the chalazal end are known as antipodal cells. Are known as antipodal cells. Are known as antipodal cells. Okay, the 2 nuclei at the middle, which are not surrounded by a cell wall, are known as polar nuclei. Are known as polar nuclei. Synergids have a different function. Antipodal cells have a different function. Polar nuclei have different function, and egg obviously have a different function. We will be studying all their function when we'll talk about fertilization. Okay? Then In a mature embryo sac, there are 8 nucleus. The 8 black dots that you see, those are your 8 nucleus. But there are only 7 cells. 3 at the top, 3 at the bottom, and the 1 big cell surrounding the 6 of them. Okay? Remember the ploidy also. Integuments are diploid, nucellus is diploid. But everything inside the embryo sac is haploid. Everything inside the embryo sac is haploid. As you can see, egg is haploid, synergid is haploid, polar nuclei are haploid, antipodal cells are haploid. So everything inside the embryo sac is haploid, everything outside the embryo sac is diploid. Yaad rakhna. Okay? Egg is not the only cell which is haploid. All the cells inside all the nuclei inside the embryo sac are haploid. Sabko samjha kya? Okay, I hope this is now clear to everybody. Okay, so now let's move forward. That was your megagametogenesis and embryo sac. Okay, now one last figure to sum everything up. Your megaspore mother cell undergoes meiosis to give rise to a megaspore tetrad. In megaspore tetrad, 3 at the micropylar end. 3 at the micropylar end degrade. The 1 at the chalazal end remains functional. The nucleus undergoes 3 rounds of mitosis to give rise to 8 nucleus. Once 8 nucleus has been formed, then cell walls are laid down. Beta Pushpa, they are haploid because this is haploid, right? Megaspore is haploid. तो इसके बाद mitosis होगा. So haploid ही तो रहेगा, right? Because mitosis ensures that the ploidy remains the same. So if the megaspore contains haploid, obviously if you keep on doing mitosis, it will remain haploid, right? Right? Because in meiosis here, I reduced the ploidy. I started off with 2N. We underwent meiosis. We ended up with a megaspore, which is haploid. After that, I am just doing mitosis. So mitosis ensures that the ploidy remains the same. So if it is 1N here, it will have 1N here also. Okay. No, Vedant, that does not happen. Okay, Dhanush, polar nucleus are not considered a cell because beta, they are not surrounded by a cell wall. That is why they are not considered a cell. They are just free nuclei lying in the middle of the embryo sac. Okay? So that was your entire process of formation of embryo sac from a megaspore mother cell. I hope this is now clear to everybody. Okay? Sabko samjha? Okay. Jai Ram. Chalo. Let's move forward there. Now, we have talked about male gametes. We have talked about female gamete. Okay? Now comes your process of transferring the male gamete to the female gamete. Okay? Nandita, think over it. Think over it and let me know. That's an interesting question. Think over it and let me know. Okay? So, now, as I said that, beta Kishore, मैं बोला ना, function of polar nuclei, function of antipodal cell, function of egg, function of synergid. पढ़ेंगे fertilization पे आने तो दो अभी pollination बाकी है pollination में एक क्लास लगेगा पूरा right anyway so that is where your pollination comes in so what is pollination simple definition all of you know from 10th standard एकदम textbook से उठाया है transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma is called pollination so transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma is called pollination. We know that pollen grains are immobile and cannot reach the stigma by themselves. Male sperms in human beings are motile. So once they have been deposited in the vagina of the female, they can swim upwards. They can swim upwards. But pollen grains are immobile. So they require agents. And these agents can be wind, water, animal, gravity, or growth contact. The agent could be anything. Okay, so there are different types of pollination that you can see. As you can see in A, pollination हो रहा है same flower में. As you can see in B, pollination is happening in the same plant, but different flower. As you can see in C, pollination is happening across different plants. So what is the name for different types of pollination? We will see. Okay, Nandita, just stay back after the class, we'll discuss it. Okay, okay. So what is pollination? Everybody knows, 2 साल पहले पढ़ा था. Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma, and since pollen grains are not motile, we require agents like wind, water, animal gravity, growth contact, etc. ठीक है? Okay. ये याद रखना. Okay, ये please याद रखना. Especially those of you who want to do NEET. Okay, especially those of you who want to do NEET, please remember that. Those of you who only want to focus on boards, you can skip a lot of things. You can skip a lot of things. You can skip this entire thing. You can skip this entire thing. This entire thing is not necessary from the board's point of view. Okay, but those of you who want to do NEET, make sure that you remember this flow chart. Okay, there is pollination. Pollination is of 2 types: self-pollination and cross-pollination. In that, then we'll see that self-pollination is also of 2 types. Self-pollination is also of 2 types. What is the 2 types of self-pollination? Autogamy and gytenogamy. Then autogamy is also of 3 types: chasmogamy, cleistogamy, and bud pollination. Okay? And in cross-pollination, then cross-pollination is categorized into 2 categories: abiotic agencies, that is, do you require things that are not alive like air or water, or biotic agencies, do you require things that are alive like birds, insects, animals, etc., or humans also, right? So, and under that there are further subcategories. So those of you who want to focus on NEET, make sure you remember each and every name given in this flow chart. Those of you who are only focusing on boards, you can skip this entire portion, okay? Because in your textbook these terms have not been mentioned. In textbook, bud pollination has also not been mentioned. So those of you who are only focusing on boards, you can skip this, you can skip this. Okay, those of you are focusing on CET, I would say that you can also skip this, but you know, you can never be sure, yeah. Because the problem with competitive exams is you cannot be sure. But in board exams, we can be sure. These things will not be asked because they are not mentioned in the textbook. Okay, anyway, so make sure that you remember this flow chart. Obviously, what are all these terms? I will be covering them over the span of today's class and tomorrow's class. ठीक है, बहुत time लगेगा pollination में, चिंता मत करो. So let's first start with self-pollination. Let's first start with self-pollination. What is self-pollination? What is self-pollination? So it is a transfer of pollen grains. It is a transfer of pollen grains from the anther of a flower to the stigma of either the same or genetically similar flower. Okay. Okay, Pritish, do not worry. I'll upload the slide in the Dropbox. You can, sorry, in the drive. You can download it from there. Okay. Okay. So, what is self-pollination? Trisha, just wait. Xenogamy क्या होता है सब cover करूँगा. Just wait for it, beta. Okay. So, what is self-pollination? Self-pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of a flower to the stigma of the same flower or genetically similar flower. What do I mean by genetically similar flower? That this means what? Same parent body. This means what? Same parent body. This means what? Same parent body. Okay, so if you go back to this figure, A and B are self-pollination because either they are happening in the same flower or they are happening in the different flower but of the same plant. So genetically similar flower. The flower is genetically similar. Okay. So what is self-pollination? Self-pollination is the process of transfer of anther of flower to the stigma of same flower. Okay. Or genetically similar flower that is same parent body. Now, self-pollination is of 2 types. Self-pollination is of 2 types: autogamy and gytenogamy. Self-pollination is of 2 types: autogamy and gytenogamy. So first we'll start with autogamy. First what we'll do is that we will start with autogamy. What is autogamy? Pollination is achieved within the same flower. Everything will happen in the same flower. I will not even use flower of the same plant. I will not even use a different flower of the same plant. Everything should happen within the same flower. So obviously the prerequisite of autogamy is that the flower should be bisexual. That the flower should be bisexual or monoecious. So what is autogamy? Pollination is achieved within the same flower. I will not even use a different flower of the same plant. I will use the same flower. Anther भी उसका, stigma भी उसका. ठीक है? So transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the same flower. So pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the stigma of the same flower. Okay? So autogamy is possible only when anther and stigma are close together. Obviously, the anther and the stigma have to be close together for autogamy to take place. Now, what are the three types of autogamy? The three types of autogamy are cleistogamy, chasmogamy, and bud pollination. So these are the three types of autogamy. I hope that the autogamy is clear to everybody. Autogamy is everything should happen within the same flower. Okay? Pollen grain bhi wahi ka, egg bhi wahi ka. I am not even using a different flower of the same plant. I want everything to be done within the flower itself. So there are three types of autogamy: cleistogamy, chasmogamy, and bud pollination. Those are the three ways in which autogamy takes place. Okay? So let's talk about first chasmogamy. Okay. Before we talk about chasmogamy, you should know what are chasmogamous flowers. So chasmogamous flowers are showy with open petals encircling exposed reproductive part. This is a chasmogamous flower. As you can see, petals are open and the reproductive parts are visible to everybody. As you can see, the anthers are visible. As you can see, that the stigma is visible, right? So your anther and stigma are visible to everybody. Your anther and stigma are visible to everybody. Your anther and stigma are visible to everybody. So these are known as chasmogamous flower. So if somebody asks you what are chasmogamous flowers, they are flowers with open petals in which reproductive parts are exposed. Example, mirabilis, which is also known as 4 o'clock plant, potato, sunflower, etc. Okay? So when autogamy takes place, beta these are anthers, the bilobe structure nahi dikh raha, these are anthers. So anyway, so when autogamy takes place, and autogamy takes place in chasmogamous flower, then it is known as chasmogamy. That is why it's important to know what are chasmogamous flower before we talk about chasmogamy. So when your autogamy takes place in chasmogamous flowers, it is known as chasmogamy. It is known as what? Chasmogamy. Okay? Okay. So how does your autogamy takes place in chasmogamous flowers? A very important step in that is there is synchrony in pollen release and stigma receptivity. That is, the stigma becomes receptive just when the anther is about to release the pollen grain. Why is the stigma not receptive before the release of pollen grain? Because if the stigma is receptive before the release of the pollen grain, then what will happen is that pollen grain from some other plant can also come and settle on it. Right? So that is why the stigma becomes receptive just when the pollen grain of the flower are ready to be released. So there is synchrony in the pollen grain release and stigma receptivity, and this is known as homogamy. Okay, so what is homogamy? Synchronization in the release of pollen grain as well as stigma. The stigma becomes receptive only when the anther is ready to release the pollen grain. Why is the stigma not receptive before that? Because if the stigma is receptive before that, then pollen grain from some other plant might come and settle on it and fertilization might take place. So as soon as the anther is about to release, the pollen grain, the stigma becomes receptive because it knows that pollen grains are about to come. Abhishek, बस इतना बोल रहा हूं, इतना ध्यान रखना है that the female reproductive part, that is stigma, becomes receptive or functional when your pollen grains are ready to be released from the same flower. That is what I'm saying. So that pollen grains from some other flower cannot come and settle. Okay? So how are the pollen grains transferred? Receptive means what? To receive something, ready to receive something, right? Ready to receive something. That is what is known as receptive. Okay? Anyway, so how are the anther and the stigma brought close? So since it does not use any agents, the anther and the stigma are brought close by growth, bending or folding. So the anther becomes too heavy and it bends so that the anther is touching the stigma. Or in some cases, the stigma bends and touches the anther. So since there is no agents being used for pollination, the anther and the stigma come close to each other by natural processes like growth, bending or folding. The important thing about casmogamy is, there is synchronization in pollen grain release and stigma receptivity. And this trait is known as homogamy. Sabko samjha what is casmogamy? Give me a yes or no, beta. Is casmogamy clear to everybody? Give me a yes or no. Sabko casmogamy samjha kya? ठीक है? आगे बढ़े फिर? Okay, thank you very much. So, this is casmogamy. Okay. Next is cleistogamy. Next is beta synchrony मतलब साथ में synchrony मतलब साथ में. If you and I speak together, we are synchronous, right? So that is what synchrony means. Okay, cleistogamy. So before we talk about cleistogamy, we should know. Okay, as people have pointed, simultaneously. Synchrony means simultaneously. Thank you very much, Sukanya and Nivedita. Okay. Beta Chetan, last point of casmogamy was that the anther will bend and touch the stigma. That is what the last statement of casmogamy was. Anyway, what is cleistogamy? So before we talk about cleistogamy, we should talk about cleistogamous flower. Just like there are casmogamous flower, there are cleistogamous flowers. So cleistogamous flowers never open. कभी खुलते ही नहीं है. So there is no chance of cross pollination. So what are cleistogamous flowers? Okay. So cleistogamous flowers. Ravi, I failed to understand your question. So just stay back after the class and explain it to me again so that I can help you. Okay. So what are cleistogamous flowers? Cleistogamous flowers are those flowers which never open. An example of cleistogamous flower, a flower that never opens. Example: Commelina, Bengalensis, Oxalis, Viola. Okay. So that is what. One second, guys. Okay. Anyway, one second. Yeah. Okay. So, what are cleistogamous flowers? Cleistogamous flowers are those flowers which never open. So, since they never open, there's no chance of cross pollination. Up to self pollination no rahega. बोलते हैं ना मजबूरी का नाम महात्मा गांधी. That is what happens in cleistogamous flower. Since they never open, they're forced to undergo self pollination. In cleistogamous flowers, the anthers dehisce inside closed flower. Dehisce का मतलब क्या? They break open. So before somebody asks, sir, what does dehiscence means or what is the meaning of dehisce? It means break open. So in cleistogamous flowers, the anthers break open within the closed flowers. Okay. Growth of style brings the pollen grain in contact with stigma. So here the style grows and brings the stigma in contact with the anther, and then the pollen grains are transferred to the stigma. Okay. What is the advantage of cleistogamy? Pollination and seed set are assured. In cleistogamy, pollination to hote hi rahega. In cleistogamy, pollination will definitely happen. In casmogamous, it is not that sure. Okay, but in cleistogamy, you will definitely have pollination. You will definitely have seeds. So that is what cleistogamy is. Is cleistogamy clear to everybody? देखो फिर से किसने पूछा dehisce का मतलब बेटा मैं बोला dehisce means break open. Yeah, dehiscence. If you remember, we talked about the dehiscence of anther. Anther breaks open to release the pollen grain. So is cleistogamy clear to everybody बेटा? सबको cleistogamy समझा? ठीक है? Is the cleistogamy clear to everybody? Okay. So casmogamy is autogamy in open flowers. Cleistogamy is autogamy in closed flowers. Okay? In casmogamy, there is synchronization. In anther release. There is synchronization in anther release and stigma receptivity. In cleistogamy, the anthers release the pollen grain within the closed flower. The style grows and the stigma touches the anther, and the pollen grains are transferred. But a seed set means मतलब बीज आगे ही रहेगा. Seed will definitely happen. ठीक है? Abhishek, I've told it once again. I hope now this is clear. So let's move forward then. What is your last one? Your last one is bud pollination. What is your last one? Last one is bud pollination. Okay, अभी बताया था किशोर, Chasmogamous flowers are open, Cleistogamous flowers are closed. In Chasmogamous, cross pollination can also take place. Cross pollination can also take place, but in Cleistogamous flowers, cross pollination never takes place. In Chasmogamous, okay, fruit and seed is not that mandatory. In Cleistogamous, seed set and pollination is definitely going to happen. Okay? Anyway, bud pollination. So what is bud pollination? Blood pollination is kind of similar to Cleistogamy, but not exactly. So here what happens is anthers and stigma of perfect flowers. What are perfect flowers? Which contain both male and female gametes. Ripen before the opening of the buds so that the pollination can take place. So here what happens is when the flower is a bud, then the anther and the stigma ripen. The anther and the stigma ripen before the flower even matures. And they ripen before the bud opens so that for pollination takes place, and then the bud opens and you can see the flower. Okay? So how is bud pollination different than Cleistogamy? In Cleistogamy, your pollination takes place in grown up flowers, but in bud pollination, your pollination takes place when the flower is still a bud, and the anther and the stigma mature before even bud fully opens up. And once pollination has taken place, then the bud opens for some times to give you a semblance of flower, and then your fertilization takes place. Okay? I hope that the bud pollination is clear to everybody. So where does bud pollination happen? It happens in pea, wheat, rice. It happens in pea, wheat, and rice. Okay? So there are three types of autogamy: Cleistogamy, Chasmogamy, and bud pollination. Chasmogamy occurs in open flowers. Cleistogamy occurs in closed flowers. Bud pollination occurs in buds where the stigma and the anther mature before the bud, so that pollination takes place, then the bud opens up. So are the three modes of autogamy clear to everybody? Are the three modes of autogamy clear to everybody? Beta, give me a yes or no. Are the three modes of autogamy clear to everybody? Sabko samjha kya? So that I can move forward. Okay? Everybody is clear? Okay. Okay. So I'll move forward then. Thank you very much. So that was your autogamy. Now, what is geitonogamy? What is geitonogamy? So in geitonogamy, what happens is it is a pollination in which pollen grains of one flower are transferred to the stigma of another flower belonging to the same plant. Very important that they belong to the same plant. Okay. Pollination happens in the same plant but different flowers. So this is also self-pollination, because if you remember the definition of self-pollination, was that the pollen grains are transferred within the same flower or genetically similar flower. And since all these flowers are present on the same plant, all of them are genetically similar. So geitonogamy is a type of self-pollination where the pollen grains are transferred from one flower to another flower, but of the same plant. Very important to remember, but of the same plant. Okay? Now, geitonogamy is functionally cross-pollination. Very important, it is functionally cross-pollination. Why? Because it involves a pollinating agent. It is functionally cross-pollination because it involves a pollinating agent. But it is genetically similar to autogamy since the pollen grains come from the same plant. This is a very important statement that geitonogamy is functionally similar to cross-pollination. Functionally. Why is it functionally similar? It is functionally similar because it involves pollinating agent like wind or maybe insects or maybe animals but genetically it is similar to autogamy. Genetically it is similar to autogamy because the pollen grain and the egg belong to the same plant. Is the second statement clear to everybody? Suppose second statement, samjha, what am I trying to say with the second statement? Is the second statement clear to everybody? Suppose second statement samjha kya? Is the second statement clear to everybody? Okay? That they are functionally similar to cross pollination. They are functionally similar to cross pollination because bees might be required, bats might be required, birds might be required, right? And all those are involved in cross pollination. But genetically it is similar to autogamy because pollen grain and the egg belong to the same plant. So since both the gametes are coming from the same plant, genetically it is similar to autogamy. Okay? Sure. Let's move forward then. Now, what are the advantages of self-pollination? Yaad rakhna, this is very important from board's perspective. So those of you are interested in the board's point of view, remember this. Okay. First is it maintains parental characteristics or purity of race indefinitely. What does that mean? No new characteristics come up, right? So in cross-pollination or in sexual reproduction, what is the main disadvantage? The main disadvantage is sometimes a variation might come in which is not beneficial also, right? Zaruri nahi hai ki variation will always be beneficial. There might be some variation which is not beneficial. So self-pollination ensures that if a plant is drought resistant, and if you keep on doing self-pollination, it will always remain drought resistant. Unless you do cross-pollination with another plant, which might not be drought resistant. So that is what the first statement means, that it maintains the paternal characters or purity of the race. Okay, next. Self-pollination is used to maintain pure lines for hybridization experiment. What do I mean? If you remember Mendel's experiment yaad hai? In monohybrid and dihybrid cross that we studied in 10th standard, right? In F1 generation, used to do self-pollination. So that is what is meant by the second statement, that it is used to maintain pure lines for hybridization experiments. Okay. Now, the plant does not need to produce large number of pollen grains. Why does it not need to produce large number of pollen grains? Because pollen is going to travel thodi na karna hai. They don't need not to be traveled to another plant, right? They have to remain mostly in the same flower. So since the distance is less, the pollen grains are not produced in that big of an amount, which is very beneficial because pollen grain production also requires energy. So if the plant can save energy, plant would love to do that. So the plant does not produce large number of pollen grains. Flowers do not develop devices for attracting insect pollinators. Flowers do not develop devices for attracting insect pollinators, right? So if you want to attract the insects, you need to have color in your flowers. You need to give them some reward. Either you give them a place to lay eggs or you give them nectar, and all of those things again require energy. So if the plant can save energy, plant would love to do that. So in self-pollination, since there are no agents involved, they do not need to develop devices for attracting insect pollinators. No need to develop colorful flowers, no need to produce nectar and such so on. It ensures seed production. In self-pollination, the probability of seed production is very high. Okay, since the distance traveled by pollen grain is very less, the chances of pollination is very high. Chances of pollination is very high. Chances of fertilization is very high. Chances of fertilization is very high. That means seed formation chances are very high. Okay? Okay, let's move forward. But what are the disadvantages? What are the disadvantages of self-pollination? New useful characters are seldom introduced. That means less variation. Less variation. So new characteristics are very rarely introduced. New characteristics are very rare. Dhanush, you want me to explain the third point again? What was the third point, beta? The plant does not produce large number of pollen grains. Makes sense, right? If you have to transfer pollen grains to a large distance in order to ensure that pollination happens, you would need to produce in large number. But since the distance travel is very short, they can be produced in, they are produced in small number. Seldom means what, beta? Seldom means kabhi kabhi, kabhi kabhi, kabhi kabhi. Okay. Kirti, yes. So in gytonogamy, flowers that depend on gytonogamy, okay, flowers that depend on guide origami, they need to develop insect attractive tools. But in orthogamy, there's no need. There's no need. Okay, okay. So new useful characters are seldom institute. Seldom means kabhi kabhi, or as other people are pointing out, sometimes, not often, opposite to always. Okay. So variability and hence adaptability to change environment are reduced. Since there is less variation, the organism is less adaptable. The organism is less adaptable to the changing environment. The organism is less adaptable to the changing environment. And we know that variations are very important if you want to survive in an environment that keeps on changing. Last is vigor and vitality of the race decreases. Vigor and vitality of the race decreases with prolonged self-pollination. Vigor and vitality of the race decreases. Okay? Okay. So what do I mean by that? That is, they become less potent. The more self-fertilization do, the problem with that is it also introduces some bad characteristics. Okay. So this is something you will study in genetics chapter, which will be taught later, that one of the disadvantages of self-pollination or self-fertilization is that if there are bad characteristics, they get amplified. So that is what is the meaning of the last statement. That is, the vigor and vitality of the race decreases with prolonged self-pollination. The bad characteristics get amplified because you're continuously doing self-pollination. Okay? Okay. So on that note, I'll stop today's class here, because after that there is cross-pollination. Okay? So cross-pollination I'll do tomorrow. Just give me a minute, guys, before you run away. Okay, just give me a minute. I would really appreciate it if you guys could give me a feedback. Okay. So thank you very much for your patience. Okay, I hope that you guys are understanding from the class. I hope that you guys are learning. Okay, that's the most important thing. If you guys are having some fun along the way, that's awesome. Okay. So thank you very much. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay, please prepare well for your MT6 that is coming up. I have high hopes from everybody. Okay, if you have any doubts, no issues, Hari. Okay, if you have any doubts, please let me know. You can always get in touch with me. Okay, so please take care. Okay, so those of you who have doubts, just stay back after the class. I'll help you with your doubts. Okay, Pritesh, just text me over WhatsApp. I'll tell you here. Okay, or text Nishikant. Pritesh, text Nishikant. He will tell you. Okay, okay. Thank you very much. Please take care, everybody. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Once again. Yeah, it was privilege teaching you guys. So take care. Bye-bye.